So welcome back everybody. If you're in the market for a side-by-side or in particular a Mahindra Roxor, you may want to watch this before purchasing. Spent years researching one of these and we finally got our hands on one last week. This is our new to us, slightly used Mahindra Roxor. All right, so we just picked this up a week and a half ago with 600 miles on it, basically brand new. It was just time to do the brake and oil change on it. So I've been looking at these for about 5 years, always dreamed of having one, and it was time for us to make a new side-by-side purchase. Our 2011 Polaris Ranger has been really good to us. We use it every single day here on our farm, but it's starting to become unreliable. I have made a lot of repairs to it. We're always having sensor wires breaking, sensors going bad. We've replaced multiple fuel pumps, injectors. While it's never truly broken down or let us down, it always has running issues, it seems. And we'll go quite a while after repairs before there's a problem. Now, the big problem is my wife and I, we love to take long road trips. We have hundreds of miles of dirt roads around here and we like to just ride. We used to do that all the time. We've since cut out all that riding over the last couple of years because we don't feel comfortable anymore with our older side-by-side taking us hours away from the house and potentially breaking down in no cell service areas and other areas we go to. So we got to looking at new side-by-sides. And if you look at the cost of some of those, they have skyrocketed. And it finally started making much more sense for us to go with this right here for our particular needs. Now there's pros and cons to something like this, and there's pros and cons to side-by-sides. We've owned both. So let me explain what this is for those of you that do not know. And for those of you that are looking for one of these, let me talk about something because I made a lot of changes over the years. Before you go off and buy a used one or a new one, they're not all exactly the same. There's been some pretty significant changes on these. We'll also discuss the pros and cons of a vehicle like this versus your typical side-by-side. And I should caution by calling this a vehicle, this is technically classified as a UTV. However, there is ways to make these street legal. What this essentially is a CJ5 Jeep that's kind of been modernized right here. Mahindra bought the rights to Jeep back in the 40s or 50s, I can't remember when, to reproduce the CJs at some point in the future. This kind of takes some styling cues from a CJ5, a little bit of a CJ7, some of the old military Jeeps, and puts it in one modern package with some really cool features, and that should be reliable. That's what I'm ultimately looking for. All right, there's a long list of upgrades to this from the previous owners, so keep that in mind as we do a walk around. This is not how a stock one will look. For starters, this has been lifted 2 inches. It's on 32 by 1150 tires. Tow hooks have been added, blinker kits. There's a full stereo system inside, a spare tire, a rear bumper. It may or may not have a few performance goodies under the hood. Yes, there's actually a long list of performance goods you can do on these. It's got fender flares. It's got just a huge list of things. Running bars or, step boards, whatever you want to call them. Floor mats. Here's part of that big soundbar stereo system. There's speakers behind the seats. Just a lot of stuff was added aftermarket. And I'll admit, these are not the world's best looking vehicles until you start adding the fender flares and the bigger tires and all. In their stock form, well, they look a little bland. And that's mainly because Mahindra had to change the front end on these. They started making styling changes around 2020 until they went to this ultimately new style. You'll notice the 2019s and back look a lot like the original CJ5 Jeeps. I mean, very similar grills and everything. Well, Mahindra actually got into a lawsuit with Jeep because of the styling cues there. By the way, they wound up winning that lawsuit. Don't forget, they bought some rights to reproduce these a long time ago. But I think what come out of that lawsuit is they just started doing styling changes and ultimately kind of changed the whole front end, got away from the CJ5, kind of squared off fenders, the way the hood rolls down, and just made some slight changes to it. Now, they made some very significant changes to the running gear. This is what I want to tell you. If you're shopping for a used one of these, I believe it was in 2020 and newer. Go research this yourself. They changed the gearing in these. So 2019 and back, I believe they had 377 gears, which is perfectly fine for some highway use, but this is ultimately for off-road use. And a lot of people are jacking them up and putting bigger tires on there. So in 2020 and newer, they went to 538 gearing front and rear. So you can absolutely put a whole lot bigger tires on here, and the small engine under the hood turns these tires with no problems. There's people all over the internet running much larger lifts and tires than these right here. 538 gearing is extremely low. Cut to a clip right here when I first pulled in. This has a 5-speed manual transmission. This has a Dana 20 transfer case. We have 2 high, 4 high, and 4 low. And let me tell you something. First gear in this is like a granny low gear, as we've always called it down here in the South. And then when you put it in 4 low, I was coming down a hill right here. You can let your foot off the clutch. It's not even about to bog, and it's like rock crawler speed. Just safely takes you down a hill. We did a bunch of wheeling yesterday, going through a lot of water and rock bottom, mud holes that's been patched up by the state. And putting this thing in first, you can just let off and ease right through there, crawling over that rough bottom, making it on nice and safely. So let's take a look underneath. This is what I love about this particular side-by-side vehicle, whatever you want to call it. So you can see solid axles, old school, the good reliable stuff, leaf spring suspension, and from what I'm understanding, don't quote me on this, I think that's a Dana 30 front. You've got a Dana 20 transfer case coupled to a 5-speed manual transmission. You can find these in automatic. I haven't seen any though. They seem to be much harder to find. I personally wanted the manual. And on the rear, I'm being told that's a Dana 44 rear end. Awesome, well-known, reliable stuff that you can get all the parts in the world for. You can get manual lockers for these. You can get electronic lockers for these. You can get manual locking hubs. All that stuff is easy to change out, and the parts are widely available. That sold me on this. All that solid axle and good dependability and reliable stuff. Now that can be a con. If you're looking for the ultimate side-by-side ride, blazing the trails with your friend on the weekend, tight corners, everything else, you do not want a leaf spring suspension. You're going to want something independent. A Polaris Ranger, for example, we own one, is going to have a much smoother ride off-road than this does right here. This is full box steel frame. This is just built like a traditional vehicle back in the day. Nice and robust and solid. By the way, it weighs over 3,000 pounds, so you're talking about twice the weight of my Ranger 2. This is not going to be as off-road capable as the side-by-side. Now, with that said, well, 4-wheel drive, lifted, bigger tires and wheels, manual transmission, it's still very off-road capable, much more than your standard vehicle. So if you're looking for robustness and reliability, I think it's going to be here. If you're looking for that buttery smooth off-road ride, you probably better stick with a side-by-side. Us personally, we're not flying up and down the trails. We do a lot of off-roading, but it's nice and slow, going through those holes, the ruts, everything else. We like to go explore, check out a lot of the lands around here. This made more sense. Now, here's the best part of all of this. What's underneath the hood? I should also mention this is an extremely popular vehicle overseas in India. It's called the Tar. It's got different design cues, but I think it shares a lot of similarities. And the reason I mention that is because it's tried, true, and tested design, but your hood latch, well, it's on the passenger side because overseas the steering wheel is over here. We'll discuss the inside in just a second. Extremely thick and heavy, double-walled, all-steel construction hood. I mean, everything is so robust on this. All right, this is my favorite part and what ultimately made me decide we're getting one of these over a side-by-side. So as y'all probably heard in the intro, 4-cylinder turbo diesel. Yes, that's right. We already get all the reliability of solid axles and everything else that's just tried, true, and tested. And they got smart and coupled it with a 4-cylinder turbo diesel, 2.5 liter. Now, excuse all the wiring under the hood. The previous owner put turn signal kits and everything else in here. I'm going to be cleaning all that up, and we're going to be adding a few more goodies myself in some upcoming videos. Now, let me tell you a little bit about the engine. 2.5 liter turbo diesel, rated from the factory at 62 horsepower, I believe 144 foot-pounds of torque. That sounds quite weak, doesn't it? Don't forget you're coupling this to a 5-speed manual transmission and 538 gears. You don't need a lot of power to turn tires, well, with gearing like that, especially being able to milk that 5-speed transmission to get what you want. But did I mention in the beginning, there's performance mods for these? All kinds of tunes, turbos, and anything else that you want. Ultimately, that may impact your warranty, engine reliability, but the forums are full of people doing tunes to these and getting 100% horsepower gains, 100+ foot-pounds of torque, and having really no reliability issues. A lot of them have thousands upon thousands of miles on these tunes. This may or may not have some of that. We'll just leave it at that. I can tell you this turns 32 1150 tires just fine. Now, because of the low 538 gearing, I top out around where I'm comfortable, 60 miles an hour, which is plenty fast to be going down some backcountry roads, side roads. We're typically cruising at 25 miles an hour, and this thing just purrs and sips fuel being a diesel. Now, they come from the factory governed to 55 miles an hour. There are aftermarket tunes that remove that governor, and yeah, you can run these 70+ mile an hour, although I personally feel like the RPMs are a bit high on my diesel for that. I find 55 to 60 very comfortable driving with this. It drives just like a vehicle. So let's talk about the engine. If you're shopping 2022 and back, these are becoming very desirable now because it has the 2.5 liter that's been built forever. It's tried, true, and tested. Again, they run it overseas. And the 2022s and back can be easily tuned if you're looking for that increase. I'm hearing that the 2023s and newers are encrypted, and well, you may not be able to do some of those tunes or performance modifications. Also in 2023, they come out with a Mahindra Roxor HD. It's got tougher leaf springs on it, a higher payload capacity, and it comes with a new 2.7 liter diesel that actually makes less horsepower. And I hear it's because it's now Tier 4 emissions compliant, and I'm not sure what's on there. Speaking of that, this has no DEF, no diesel exhaust fluid, no emissions equipment on it. It's just a good, well-built, reliable 4-cylinder turbo diesel that doesn't have all that extra junk on there. Now, it's got your typical EGR and EGR cooler and other things like that for emissions, but it doesn't have all the big extra add-ons that a lot of your vehicles do nowadays. Again, being a side-by-side, it can get away with a lot of that. So I knew personally I did not want to go with the 2023s and up. 2022 is the newest I could get. Plus, well, we like buying used here and let other people take the hit on all the accessories. We got a killer deal on this, and it made more sense to go with this again than a side-by-side. Now, if you're not looking for any performance modifications, you'll probably be just fine going with a 2023 or newer. It's still got the same gearing, same 5-speed manual transmission. Now, I was also not interested in the HD. If you're a farmer, going to be putting a bunch of weight in the bed, which is not a very big bed, by the way, you may want that extra weight capacity, payload capacity. I can tell you this one's rated for 350 pounds. You can easily put over 1,000 pounds back there. They're rated that way for specific reasons for UTV and side-by-side categories. The new HD is allowed to claim much higher capacity, and they do put thicker leaf springs in. A lightweight vehicle like this, I do not want thick leaf springs in it. I want to go ahead and get as smooth of a ride off-road as I can because, well, we're not going with independent suspension here. And actually, I found this rides very well to be leaf spring. I thought it was going to be much rougher than it is. But at the end of the day, this is not a side-by-side. You're not going to get that kind of off-road ride. But we found this very adequate for the type of riding that we do. So the diesel is made by Mahindra. Again, tried, true, and tested. These have been made in the States for 5 years. They've been overseas in India for much longer. They're daily drivers over there. You'll see a lot of people from overseas comment on the forums and on video comments on these talking about just how reliable these vehicles are known to be over there. That's great. I don't want a new design of anything. That's why you buy something like this with the old school suspension and everything else. It's just a tried, true, tested design. Plus, with us converting everything over here at the farm to diesel, we now have a diesel zero turn. We have a couple diesel tractors. Now we have this right here. It makes sense for us to continue to go with diesel for the reliability and for the fuel storage options that we're going to be doing. Now, it just so happens some states do allow you to make these street legal. It's going to have some specific requirements to your state. You're going to have to go through some special registration processes. The guy I bought this from had his registered for street legal. That's why we have turn signal kits on here, rear view mirrors, front windshield, and all the other stuff that's required. Your state may be different, but I used a company called Dirt Legal. They go through all the legal paperwork, get you set up, and I now am running my temporary tag for on-road use, and I'm going to be getting my full tag in and registration for on-road use as well. And this is already fully insured through Progressive, by the way, for on-road use as well. It was actually a relatively easy process. I paid full price for it, but Dirt Legal does have a referral program. I'll put a link down there. If you're looking to get something off-road made on-road legal and your state allows it, you may want to look at their services. They take care of all the hassle and paperwork for you. That's the other reason I was very excited about this. It's already basically an on-road vehicle classified as a side-by-side, and I was able to get it street legal. Awesome. Now, again, its intended use is for around the farm, some dirt road riding, with the occasional slight highway use to get to the next dirt road. I'm not going out there because of the gearing and everything else in it and driving this thing on the interstate. We have regular vehicles for that, but now we can get around much easier and more legal than we could with a side-by-side. So there's two options with the Mahindra Roxor. You have the traditional roll bar frame that's wide open, looks like an old Jeep, or you can get their all-weather package, which is what we have here. It comes with like an ABS sealed plastic plastic. It's very crude. Yes, it does leak, but it keeps you out of the elements, the snow, the wind, blocks most of the rain, the heat, everything else. It'll come with windshield wipers, which again, if you're going to try to go street legal, your state's probably going to require that. It's got side mirrors, a rear view mirror up here. We've done something special with ours. It had a hard ABS back and a hard windshield. We ripped that out, which was very easy to do, removing a few bolts up top here and a bar in the back. And we put a soft back in that's actually made for the open cab version. This allows us to unzip and roll this window up, and we can put our dog in the back when we're riding around. We can pet him, we can reach back to the cooler, we keep a little trash can in here, all that kind of stuff. We actually like this a lot better. But should we want to go ride on some nasty rainy days, this actually already works. Yes, it does allow some water in, but we can pop our hard back right in. But I want to let you know that it did not come from factory with a soft back. It's got a hard back here. We just took ours out. Here's a look at the bed. You know, it is what it is. Not a whole lot of room back there, maybe about as much as my Ranger. Nice big squared off fenders. You can put a bunch of weight back here. You really can. Typically we're hauling buckets, coolers, rubber boots, a few other things like that. The back opens up like this. The spare tire was added. That does not come from factory. Door swings open. On the all-weather model, there is a piece of steel right here, so that does keep water and other things from going into your cab. On the roll bar open station model, is what I guess we'll call it, that's wide open right through. So if you had an animal or need to reach back and grab something, you're just wide open in between the seats. Let's take a look on the inside. Just soft doors, kind of like an old school Jeep. They're just wire frame. I mean, they're kind of crude. You got to slam them real hard to make them seal. The seals aren't the world's best, but again, it does keep you out of the elements. Zip down windows here that you can roll up and just button up with a strap. Just like a traditional Jeep, you just pop this, the doors slide up and off of these pins right here so you can ride with no doors. There's all kinds of aftermarket accessories and doors and everything else for these. It's actually quite roomy. We have several friends we've been riding with that have CJs and TJs and everything else, and everybody keeps commenting about how much room we have in here. So just standard seats, we're relatively comfortable. I will say after several hours of wheeling off-road, I do find my lower back kind of bothers me a little. One thing I like about these lock boxes under both seats, quite a bit of room right in here between both seats with a big center console. The previous owner added some additional cup holders here. They do make different aftermarket consoles here with storage and everything else. And there's a decent amount of storage behind the seats. However, the previous owner put, well, a couple of tins back there. I'll admit, our stereo system sounds really good. Here's your manual 5-speed transmission, your transfer case to go from 2 high, 4 high to 4 low. Added an aftermarket turn signal kit, which is required for us to go street legal. Windshield wipers, not the world's craziest about the design, how they have them. There is 2 windshield wipers, which is kind of unique, but they're just kind of up through the windshield. There are aftermarket kits to drop those, by the way. Lights, low and high beams, a horn. This is all stuff I added right here. So here is the kicker. This one actually comes, being the all-weather model, with AC and heat. And let me tell you something, it works very, very well. So you have a low, medium, and high speed. You have all these vents here, as well as a couple vents down here for your feet. And you even have defrost vents up top here in the dash. We are absolutely amazed by how well the heater and especially the AC works. The blower is very strong on this. AC gets very, very cold. We love that. It's all rhino lined on the inside. You can technically wash these out if you lift the mats up. Factory already has pre-drilled pretty large holes for you to wash and rinse out. You're going to get water in these things. It's just the way it is. The only thing that's not recommended to wet is your AC, assuming you have the all-weather model with it, and I would avoid some of your switches as well. But if you just need to kind of wash out the bottom of the pans and seats, everything's rhino lined for you to do that. All right, so let's give you one last walk around here of this particular model. Wrap this video up and I'm going to let you know what's coming. Oh, by the way, if you buy the all-weather package from Mahindra, which is your AC and hard cab version, it comes with an extremely nice Warn M8000 pound winch right here. I am shocked for the price of these. They're including what is a $900 winch. So with the price of side-by-sides flying through the roof and the fact that we don't do much serious off-roading, we couldn't justify it. And by the way, if you price like, say, the new side-by-side from Polaris that has AC and heat like this in a hard cab, yeah, they're $40-some-odd-thousand. That is insane and so far out of our budget. I don't have that much money in every single vehicle that we own. I'm all about buying used, waiting, older stuff, or catching a heck of a deal like we did on this. This person lost all their money on accessories and quite a bit more, and we only had 600 miles on it. I would much rather get the deal and let somebody else take the loss in that particular situation. So coming up, well, I guess on this particular channel, by the way, we have a main channel in case you're stumbling across this called the Kelly's Country Life, where I'll be doing some fabrication. I like to do welding and building over there. We're gonna build us a little toolbox in the back for some recovery stuff and off-road gear, things such as that. I just bought some LED lights. We'll install them, do a little review on those, and do a few other minor upgrades to this. It's not a whole lot to do because the previous owner spent so much money on this thing. You're probably curious about mileage. I haven't added it up just yet. We've only had it about a week and a half, but we literally already doubled the miles of what the previous owner put on it in a year and a half. This thing sips fuel. We go and ride hours and hours and hours, and it drops maybe a quarter of a tank typically. And it's only got a 12-gallon tank. I'd say we're in the high 20s. I see a lot of people online claiming they're getting in the 30s with these, but they're probably running factory tires, and some people are putting manual lockers in the front and leaving them unlocked, hub lockers that is, and that gets you even better fuel mileage. But this thing is already absolutely amazing on the fuel economy. That's why I love a diesel. All right, hopefully you enjoyed this video. We're gonna have some more out on this, again, with some little upgrades and accessories and other things that we're gonna do. We'll let you know about the reliability, how well it's holding up, the street legal process, as I'm still going through that, but it's almost pretty much complete, been flawless up to this point, and any other questions that you might have. If we do any future performance increases or other things to it as well, we'll also include that on the channel. And if the request is there, we may go record a little off-roading and wheeling as well, which we don't do nothing serious, but we do hit a lot of dirt roads, some mud holes, some back roads, things such as that. So if you'd like to see any of that content, drop me a comment down there and let me know. We'll catch you on the next video.